sex scene was the hardest scene. Not in that sense.
Sex scenes. Freaking awkward.
You just got to throw yourself in and just get on with it. You know, if you stand around being nervous about it, worrying about it too much, then that's going to show.
It was the first time I'd ever done something like that, and it was just kind of hard to get into that frame of mind.
Reese remembered the bird in the headlight, and she remembered waking up 27 days later. All she knows is she's different now.
You know, I thought it would be amazing to work with these girls in a way, you never seen them play characters like this. Totally, kind of turns the whole kind of pop mythology, that they embody, kind of messes with that and refilters that and turns it on its head.
The stories we tell ourselves aren't the only stories. I'm 16 years old.
I expect him to be there. He hasn't been there. I want him to be like, you know what, Brianna, I'm gonna go to the doctor's appointment with you. No, he doesn't do that.
And when the baby's born, what do you want from him?
To be there for her. I want him to wake up in the middle of the night and do everything I have to do.
How can I be manipulating you if I don't even know I'm being manipulative?
Are you even taking your pills?
Of course I'm taking my pills. I'm not crazy. You hate colors, you hate pillows, you hate ribbons, you hate everything. I can't be the only thing you like.
I just never imagined in a million years that you and I would be having casual sex.
What? Yeah?
We're headed to high school, not the Academy Awards.
You never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Please, we're talking about teenagers. They're impressed by shiny objects.
Thus my earrings.
You could just try being yourself.
Spoken like a true unpopular person. That never works. Using exhaustive Facebook research, I've identified the most popular girl at school. I then deconstructed her profile and used that data to carefully plot out our first encounter so as to easily befriend and beguile her.
Beguile? Big word, Shakespeare.
Somebody sit in my chair and ruin my sleep and make me aware of being a...
Some critics, many of whom are gay, have suggested that characters like Kurt are too gay or too effeminate, and that such portrayals reinforce negative stereotypes about the gay community. Here's Murphy's response.
I relate to many of the characters, but I really relate to him because, obviously I am gay, and I was gay in high school and sort of out of the closet about it. And I always felt different. There was nobody really like me in my high school.
If we're gonna work together, we gotta keep our feelings to ourselves.
I don't know if I can.
God, Maya, why you gotta ruin everything?
You have Jacob.
Not while you're around. What the hell's going on?
And now, East Los High.
Hey, I'm gonna call you back. Come on.
You think she's so much better than me?
You're in your seat, bitch.
I have a boyfriend.
This is not gossip. This is journalism. I'm pregnant?
I raised you to be a man.
Oh my God.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Youth Live. Thanks so much for coming. We have an amazing panel of speakers today. I'm Dr. Michele Noonan. I'm co-founder of Sexpinion, a new social network for sex education. And I'm also a former reality TV star, most known for being on Big Brother. Now, we have great speakers. Here we have Cindy Lee, a member of the Youth Board. Hi, thank you for coming. Hi. We have Katie Elmore, who is CEO of the Praja Productions. Thank you. We have Ebony Section, who is also a member of our youth board. We have Amy Reardon, who is the supervising producer of CW's The Carrie Diaries, ABC Family's Jane by Design, and Greek. Let's see. We have Melinda Lowe, who's the author of Adaptation, Ash, and Huntress. We have Max Kamen Cross, who is a member of our youth board, and Erica Lorraine Scheit, who is the youth board member and the author of Uses for Boys. And we have Anthony Sis, who is a member of our youth board. Thank you all for coming, and let's chat now about how teens learn about self-image, sex, and relationships from TV, film, and books. So our first question is really, what were we watching and reading as teens, and how does that compare to what we're reading now and watching as adults? Now, I watched Dawson's Creek when I was a kid, and now I've really turned into all those sexy vampire books and movies. I love Vampire Diaries. I love True Blood. Cindy, let's start off with you.
Hello. Hi everyone. So when I was a teen, around maybe 16 to 17, I was watching a lot of reality TV shows. I think around that time, that's when reality shows really kicked off. So I watched America's Next Top Model, Survivor, The Amazing Race. American Idol got really big around that time too. And now I'm watching shows like Parks and Recreation, The Walking Dead, and I'm catching up with Arrested Development.
Let's go down the line. Katie?
When I was a teenager, I remember watching 90210, the original one, not the new one. And now I like a variety of shows. I'm psyched to see Mad Men coming out tonight. The Good Wife. I liked Girls. I liked the first season better than the second season. But kind of a variety of different shows that are out there.
Hello, everyone. As a teen, I watched a lot of music videos. So I watched music videos from sun up to sundown. Today, I still watch some music videos, but it's kind of diverse. I watch a lot of reality shows, The Game, Housewives of Atlanta, and I also watch a lot of Criminal Minds shows as well. So I got a diverse group now.
Hi. As a teenager, I watched the original 90210 also, and the original Melrose Place. My So-Called Life, Party 5. Now I watch Girls, Mad Men, and as a scripted television writer, I do watch a lot of reality TV, which is probably bad because it puts me out of business.
Well, when I was a teenager, I was a huge bookworm, and honestly, I can't remember what I watched on television, but I read a lot. I read Robin McKinley, I read Madeleine L'Engle, and we were talking earlier about what sort of things we were watching and reading and where we got our kind of sex education outside of school, and I have to say I read a lot of Jean Auel, Clan of the Cave Bear, Valley of the Horses, those kind of books. Today, I still read a lot, but I love TV. I watch Walking Dead, I watch Vampire Diaries, I watch Lost Girl, love TV.
So I think I'm still technically a teen for another couple months. But I'm a huge fan of comedy TV like The Office, Parks and Rec, 30 Rock, but I'm also really like Criminal Minds, lots of shows like that. Suits is a great show if anyone's seen it, fantastic show on USA.
Well, I'm also a huge bookworm, and I have no idea what I was watching then, and now I watch everything on Netflix, so I'm at least a decade behind, but I'm watching West Wing, which is, big West Wing fans. The young adult books I'm reading are incredible, and there's just I'm reading a lot of A.S. King right now. I read Rookie. Do you guys read Rookie online? Rookie's an awesome site. There's a lot of really interesting genderqueer books. I just finished Brooklyn Burning by Steve Brezhnev, which I was really excited about. I think when I was a kid, for sex, maybe I'm the same age as Melinda, but I books that had anything explicit that you could kind of dog ear and go back and forth forever was obviously one we were reading. But we were also, were we the only ones reading Penthouse Forum letters? Because I'm telling you, you've got Tumblr now, so you don't need, you don't have to read everything a couple months out of date.
Yeah, I actually don't remember watching anything when I was younger that wasn't reality TV, because my sister used to watch, she's a few years older than me, so she was always watching MTV, VH1, and so I remember kind of watching TV during that transitional period when it went from being about music videos 24/7 on MTV to reality television, like the Real World Road Rules Challenge. I remember watching those kinds of things, and now my guiltiest pleasure is The Real Housewives. I watch all of them except for New York. That's my least favorite, but I do watch it sometimes when there's nothing on, and Top Chef. I love Top Chef. So.
Well, that's really interesting, considering reality TV didn't even arrive until basically 2000, when I was an 18-year-old. So reality TV wasn't even in existence when some of us were teenagers. So one question really that arises with reality TV is it's a whole nother format, and really how does reality TV portray characters, and how are they different from scripted TV and film? For example, LGBTQ youth. So how is a gay youth on Glee depicted differently than reality TV and real-life characters? Let's see. Amy, what are your thoughts?
I feel like in reality TV, the more outrageous, the better. You get more screen time. I feel like you are a heightened version. You become a character. Whereas in scripted TV, at least in the 1-hour drama world, in the teen world, what we try and do is be as realistic as possible. Most of our stories come from personal experiences. We're constantly striving, even though it is on television, it's slightly heightened, but we're striving to be as authentic as possible. And I feel like that's kind of the difference between reality and scripted, even though reality is supposed to be as authentic as possible and is mostly scripted.
Max, what do you think about the characters on reality TV?
So I think reality TV is really unique because it's obviously, like Amy just said, it's not supposed to be scripted, but at the same time it's very, very set about what's being shown. For example, The Real World, which is really like the first reality TV show out there, films for 3 or 4 months and breaks it down into like 13, 14 hours of actual footage, sometimes even less than that. So they can really make drama happen a lot, which I think brings out the stereotypical, like the sassy gays a lot, because those make for better TV pretty often. But then sometimes there's like Jeff from Flipping Out on Bravo, or even some of the older Real World characters who are kind of more of just like normal gay people, which is kind of cool to see. Very few of them, but I think it's a lot of stereotypical sassy gay characters that get brought out there.
Now, Glee is one of the TV shows that really brings LGBTQ youth to the forefront in TV. So we have characters like Kurt and Blaine. We have Jane Lynch, who portrays a female coach on Glee. How do you think these characters are portrayed? Are they real? Should there be more gay characters on TV? Just your general thoughts. How about Melinda?
Yeah, I think there should be more gay characters on TV. Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned Glee. Obviously, I think Kurt and Blaine get a lot of press, and they have been very popular. But Glee also has characters like Santana and Brittany, and the storyline about Santana and Brittany has been much more highly criticized for its representation of bisexual and lesbian teens on TV. So there's a very mixed representation, not specifically only in Glee, but across all of network TV. So I think that representations of queer characters have certainly improved in their variety and richness over the last decade or so, but obviously there's plenty of room. I mean, there are very few queer teens of color on television. There are very few queer teens who are not, middle, upper middle class. So there's clearly room for a lot more. We want all of it. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly to be shown on TV because these people exist in real life.
Exactly. What we see on TV a lot of times, or in films, is really white, straight teens. And one of the questions that we really see is, okay, so we do have shows that show, say, white LGBTQ characters, but you don't really see queer characters of color. And also, another thing to consider is who are watching these shows. So probably it's white teens watching white shows. Really, what are the urban youth watching? Is it the same thing? The same shows? I mean, what are your thoughts? Ebony?
I don't think they're not. Urban youths are more watching Love and Hip Hop. Certain channels that are more urban, BET. So personally, I think if some of these shows can migrate off of the urban channel so youth can see maybe a Black love vampire story, or they can see more queer color of youth and things like that. I think that if they see someone that reflects to them, they can be, I guess, exposed to different genres and different popular trends in media.
Okay. What about in books? So we're talking a lot about TV and film. Let's see, Erica, what are your thoughts? Are teens of color represented enough in books?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, just building on what Ebony said, readers and viewers don't mirror the characters. The characters are a way of reflecting who we are, but also a way of providing us with a framework to talk about our experiences. And I think part of the challenge for producers and writers and publishers is, if I've written a book with lesbian characters, then I've limited my audience, and now only lesbian readers can read my book. And that's not true at all. We have a variety of experiences and a variety of interests in our reading, and one of the biggest audiences for books with queer characters are straight kids. I don't know, Melinda.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, my books all have queer girl main characters in them, but coming out is, a lot of times when people hear gay book, they think it's about coming out, and none of my books are about coming out. I mean, these people just happen to be queer while they have adventures and save the world. So, I really want to see more books like that, because I think, obviously as individuals, if you are queer, you have to come out at some point, or you struggle with that, but that's one aspect of your life, and I don't think there's any reason for us to be limited to those kinds of stories. We can save the world too, just like Buffy.
I think one of the things, having worked at ABC Family for a few years, one of the things that they do very well is represent that the gay and lesbian community. When I worked on Greek, we had a Black gay fraternity brother who was a series regular, and it was fascinating writing stories for him. And I feel like in Pretty Little Liars, you have a lesbian main character, and they were always pushing us to include everyone in the show. And I think they do a really good job incorporating a lot of the teen.
I agree. Well, we've been talking a lot about LGBTQ. Another big feature is teen girls, teen straight girls, and how they are featured in TV and film and books. There seems to be sort of a script of what you can write for a teen girl. It seems to be very girl next door characters, very likable. What are your thoughts? How do you represent a real girl in TV and film? And is a real girl that's having real issues being presented on TV? Or are we just saying the fantasy of what we'd like teen girls to be? Katie?
I think that's a tough question. I think that there definitely is kind of a narrow prism that we like to put teen girls into, although I think we're seeing a greater diversity of shows and types of characters out there. I mean, the show that I produced actually was the last show up there called East Los High that's coming out this spring. It's an all Latino cast. Now, one of the things that, and I'm just going to share my experience more than commenting, because I'm not an expert on knowing all the teen shows, and so I can't speak to that. But one of the pieces of feedback we got was like, wow, it's all, and it's a very pop show, as you saw. But one of the pieces of feedback we got was, well, don't you think you should have like a white person sprinkled in and maybe a black person? Like, we want to see them all. And I'm like, well, this takes place in East LA. And for those of you who've been to East LA, it's all Latinos. It's about their experience. And it was written by all Latinos. Like, that's the other thing that's really important, to have people tell their stories from behind the camera and also be in front of the camera. So it's not just about getting talent. It's about getting talent behind the camera, too, so they can share their stories with the world. And I think that's really vital. And when I think about the development of teen characters, I think getting teens involved in, as much as we can in research about the shows and the stories we're trying to tell, and then also having people who maybe had like experiences. For instance, we deal with teen pregnancy. We had a teen mom from East LA who is now 34 and had a 17-year-old daughter at home, and now was dealing with all these same issues around sex. She was very key to writing this series. So I guess when I'm thinking about the representation of teen girls, I just think it's important to draw on life and not be scared to portray life as it is. I think we often want to create this ideal scenario of like, oh, we're all happily, and this is, I think that's good too. I don't think it should all be one or the other, but I think being real allows us to have a real conversation.
I think I would love that to happen. I think what happens is when you write for television, every writer I know wants to be more authentic and wants to do the real teen girl experience. Unfortunately, you get a lot of pushback from the network and the studios. I think it's fantastic that you get to do things outside of the studio system where you're not beholden to that, and I feel like that's why you're able to do that. When you're working for someone else and they're the ones that are paying for it, they have a lot of very strong opinions about what is featured on television. We'll turn in scripts that are constantly being thrown back, saying the character is not likable. This rarely happens with anyone but the teen girl characters, which is very frustrating because I feel like even if you have your main character doing something that isn't even necessarily mean, it's just something you would do in general human experience and emotion that isn't perfect, you get a lot of pushback from that. Viewers aren't going to want to watch this character. They're very, they're so mean, they're so unlikable. So just know as content providers, we are constantly trying to do that, but a lot of times we're not able to do that.
And that plays into the next question. So when you have characters that are now embracing real life situations, so you have a character that, say, has an abortion. Now, your character is the least likable character on the show. As an actor, do you want to go there? Is there a lesson to the viewers watching these shows? Should there be more real life scenarios like abortions, like date rape? Even though this is entertainment, we're supposed to be laughing, should we have a lesson in each show? Because there are so many issues. What are your thoughts on this? Let's see. How about we start off with Anthony?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think, well, especially because with a lot of realistic situations, it does bring about issues of trauma, and especially about how explicit it is and whether or not you're drawing the boundary between showing reality or actually just exploiting whoever really does go through those situations besides the actors who are actually being portrayed. So it's a really, really fishy line. I think there definitely needs to be greater awareness and greater conversations about it. I just think how it is illustrated on TV should be seen very, very critically, and also very, very kind of creating this kind of like dialogue. So essentially not really exploiting them, not showing to the full length, but so much so that people are actually talking about it as opposed to not pushing it to the side and saying that it doesn't actually happen or it doesn't exist in a certain situation. Because I think oftentimes it's like A, B, and C equals D. But A, B, and C can equal D, E, F, G, H. It can be any given moment, any given day. So I think it really does depend. It really does depend. But as long as the show does it with the intent to increase conversations around those really hard-hitting topics, I think that's kind of what a show should do, despite it being just for pure entertainment.
Oh, that's a great point.
I think it's really challenging for viewers and readers, because if you don't know that other people are having experiences like yours, you think you're all alone and you think you're nuts. And if we're only showing these sanitized versions of youth sexuality, of queer teens, of young people, then there's nothing to reflect back that you're part of a community. Max, I saw you writing furiously when...
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's great to like have lessons there. I think that before we can really focus on teaching lessons in our entertainment TV shows, we really have to start to normalize a lot of these issues. For example, Modern Family, suddenly one of the most popular shows in America, suddenly normalized the gay household. Not that it wasn't out there before, not that it wasn't talked about, but it wasn't talked about on like that level where it's suddenly being brought into every single living room in America. Another show that I think is great with that is Skins, which ran on MTV for a little while, which suddenly had someone who had psychological problems. Then there was a teen there who was in a psych ward for a short amount of time. And so doing shows like that where it doesn't necessarily start to teach lessons, but it more brings attention to the problems and normalizes it, I think is the next big first step that really has to be taken in this kind of evolution of thought in TV.
Right. I believe that we don't really need to have like a set lesson for each episode. It's more of being true to that character. For example, in The Walking Dead, Glenn is an incredibly strong character. He's also Asian American. And I don't think the writers went out and tried to make the lesson of, oh, there's a strong Asian character and he doesn't have to be white, he doesn't have to be like perfect. And I think that if the writers are just true to the characters and to what could realistically happen, then the audience will accept it as well.
Great points. What do you guys think about, say, safe sex in teen dramas, comedies, film? For example, like how many times do you ever see someone use a condom in film or TV? I mean, what are your thoughts? Would that interrupt the entertainment value for you, or would you like to see more of that in teenage dramas?
You know, in TV, actually, in film, you don't necessarily have to show them use a condom, but in TV, particularly teen dramas, we have standards and practices that usually, which I think is really good that they ask us to always include that we have a mention of a condom. Rarely do they let you get that through standards and practices where there isn't a mention of a condom, and if there isn't, it has to be a plot point that then she becomes pregnant because she didn't use a condom, or gets a disease because she doesn't use a condom. So they're pretty strict about using condoms for teen dramas.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they have those standards for TV, but not for film, and then web content, it's pretty much a free-for-all, right?
Yeah, film, they don't have those standards.
One of the things that I think is really interesting that I found, because I also produced a show for MTV in Latin America, is the networks, and you know, it was interesting what you were saying about the networks, because I totally agree, and that was kind of the feedback that I was giving, and why we produced the show independently, and I've done it both with networks and without. But talking about sex is way more taboo than showing it. And talking about it in like a realistic, racy way, like. And that was one of the things with the show. We're like, we want to go there. What does it look like in the bed? You know, like, what are people saying? What is the conversation after? How do things, you know, look and feel? What is that like? Because I think we often see, you know, drunk sex, we see crazy, you know, or, you know, implied, whatever, leading up to. We don't actually have any nudity, but it was considered highly racy because we go there with conversations. And I think that is really fascinating. And I think that also can be I think it's something that's important, because conversation is how we have healthy relationships. It's how we kind of forward, you know, our thought processes and where we are, you know, in sexual health.
Well, conversations are required for consensual sex. Like, you have to be able to talk about it. And I think navigating those conversations, navigating pleasure is how people do have consensual sex. But there is sort of a taboo. I mean, even in the books I read, the young adult books, but also the adult books, like, it's all fade to black. Like, there's not a lot of explicit sex. And when I looked at writing uses for boys, I was interested in the messy bits, the physical bits, the awkward parts, and you know, there's a way that it's really polarizing, because, you know, what makes us uncomfortable in youth sexuality is probably the same thing that makes us uncomfortable in adult sexuality. Like, it makes us uncomfortable.
Has anybody ever seen or heard of Sugar? It's a show produced by MTV, and it's specifically shown in African countries, but I went to a screening of the show last year at the International AIDS Conference, and it was very, very, very explicit in terms of whenever they would have sex, they would show a condom, like a full condom with the wrapper on it. It wouldn't have a name or anything, and they would show the actual person taking out the condom from the wrapper and all that kind of stuff. And it was actually really interesting, because some of the actors from the show were on there, and they were talking about how they couldn't believe how in the U.S., shows that, you know, would display sex or would talk about sex wouldn't actually show a condom, or wouldn't actually show them actually talking about consensual sex. And so for me, it was really interesting, and they were talking about their role in it as actors, how they got a lot of positive feedback for that because they explicitly talked about sex, they explicitly showed condoms, they explicitly just everything was open, and it was very realistic in that sense. It wasn't like a fake, let's have sex or let's use a condom. No, it was very kind of natural, ebb flowing, like how a consensual sexual relationship would actually look like. So it's something, I think you could watch it online. It's called Sugar, but I definitely recommend it. You could watch all the episodes, and it's really, really, really explicit. And it's produced by MTV, but it's not shown here in the U.S.
Another MTV show, I'll just jump in and say that is shown in the U.S., The Jersey Shore, might be terrible in like every other thing, but Pauly D every single time, which is basically every single episode at least once, that Pauly D is having sex, he reaches into his dresser and grabs a condom every single time. And though it's not anywhere near a main plot focus or anything like that, it's basically shown almost every time, which is at least good to show it, and then they do a lot of bad things there, but they have a couple good things in the show.
Oh, the Jersey Shore. So we've seen a lot of controversial things happen now on TV. What is sort of the next step? What is one thing that you haven't seen on TV or in film or in books that you really want to see, sort of not push the envelope, but really what's missing?
I would like to see more young African-American teen parents, especially young fathers, to be presented in the media. So as far as a reality show, because I feel like that's a missing element as well. Just young fathers, period, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, just to second that, I would definitely like to see, amongst queer people of color, especially where they show the parents and kind of where they're coming from, I definitely don't want to see any more machismo, father parents don't accept them, because personally I'm starting to see a lot of people actually whose parents are actually accepting their children, and so I wish that Latinos and African Americans were portrayed in a more positive aspect, especially amongst the parents of people who are actually accepting their kids and talking openly about how they're accepting them, whether it be for religious reasons or whatever. I kind of want to see more positive role models of the parents' role in young people coming out. So.
Great. Well, thanks so much for an amazing discussion. We're going to open this up now to questions from the audience. Please stand up if you have a question for the panel. We have the microphone. Thank you.
When you're way.
I'm co-chair of an organization called Washington Women for Choice, and so I think a lot about abortion and abortion stories and how it's portrayed. And one of the things that seems to me challenging about presenting abortion in fictional media is that unless the abortion is somehow harmful, which gets portrayed in movies, right, it's like the trauma and drama end with the abortion. Yeah. And so I'm just wondering, as people who create content, how do you, is there a way to kind of present a kind of positive abortion that doesn't just end the story?
Well, I'll jump in just because I tried. I think I tried. In Uses for Boys, the main character has an abortion, and somebody asked me just recently, oh, so was that the lesson? Was that the punishment? And it had never occurred to me that somebody would look at the abortion as a punishment for having sex. And I always saw this scene as a love letter that I was writing to the Women's Health Center in Portland, Oregon, where I had been at 17. And I just thought, you know, as a young person, the character in my book, similarly, this is the first time she saw, you know, self-actualized women whose whole career was helping other women. And, you know, I think there's a lot of exciting stories. I met 1 in 3, is that the right name, when I was here last year, and I'm like, this is good stuff, you know. Women need to be telling these stories so that it isn't shameful. And we had a great conversation about abortion in scripted television and how the main characters seem to always be having miscarriages right before they have to make the decision, or they made the decision so they don't have to talk about it. I think Amy...
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I mean, it would be great if we could show more of that on television and have a more accurate representation. We shy away from that a lot, mostly because you just don't want to get the pushback.
Yeah.
So we'd prefer just not to tell those stories. I think, unfortunately, it's just kind of a battle that you face as a writer. So.
I think it's a hugely important issue, and we actually deal with it in our show. And I don't think it's the end. I think it's actually the beginning. And for some, you know, it's actually not even the beginning or the end or anything. I shouldn't say that. I think it's just one decision in someone's life. And, you know, 1 in 3 women by the age of 35 in this country have had an abortion. And I think then 50% of those have had more than one. This isn't something that happens rarely, so therefore let's at least normalize the discussion. We don't all need to agree, but we at least need to be able to recognize it happens, and people need to feel okay about the decision that they make that's right for them. So that was something that was very important in our show, and we actually showed people make every decision. So keep a baby, have an abortion. I mean, we were very intentionally going to talk about sexual health issues. But I think it can be done, and I think it can be done really well. I was talking, when we were talking beforehand, I was actually on a panel with one of the writers from Parenthood before this, and they did an abortion. And one of the writers was telling me, you know, they actually did it because it was just true to the character. It wasn't because like they had a mission or anything the way that the organization that I'm working with does in our funding. But it was just the right thing for her character to do. And very normal. And she was like, I was a little afraid I was going to get all this hate mail and everything else, but I actually got thank you mail. It was actually hugely important to so many women watching because they had been through the same thing, and they felt like, you know, it is a big deal, but it wasn't like this life-changing, altering thing. It was like a decision that they made, and their life continued. And I think that, you know, everyone has their own unique experience, but that's what TV's for, is to bring these stories into the living room, and I think it's hugely important.
Agreed. Do we have another question?
Right over here. I find it interesting that you guys talk about books and TV. I'm not going to say my age, but I've been hammered on the communication with young people as being primarily through a lot of other media and mobile and other things. So I was just wondering sort of what the thought is here in terms of the relationship between the experiences that are not necessarily on standard media, film, book, and the role of online and Facebook and so far in the conversation you're having right now, if you don't mind.
I think media drives a lot of what we do. I don't know the exact stats off the top of my head, but I know kids now watch some absurd number of TV, like half their awake time is with TV. Youth answer a text message every 10 minutes, things like that. But I think a lot of information is brought about through media. There are some great websites out there. I know Scarlettine's a great one. There's a lot of ones out there promoting positive knowledge on sex. But a lot of just what we talk about online, what we talk about in those alternative sources of media are really brought about through TV and books, because that's still a main focus of a lot of our daily lives.
Yeah, I would have to say that when you look at Twitter, when you look at trending hashtags and things like that, this is what young people are doing. They're tweeting, they're posting on Facebook, they're Instagramming. And so what are they talking about? They're usually talking about celebrities that are talking about sex. So that's what you see in the news, stuff that goes on TMZ. So one of my examples I tell people is, okay, what do you see in the news? You see Amanda Bynes talking about, hey, I tweeted Drake that I want him to murder my vagina. So these are the things that people are talking about. These are the things that teens are talking about. And we should use these opportunities to really address the issues and talk about, are these things okay? Should we be tweeting that? Should teens be tweeting that to each other? Is this how a woman should act? What's the proper response if you get tweeted that? You know? And so I think that we really have to use the power of social media and celebrities to really engage the conversation about sex and healthy relationships. And that's one of the reasons why I started Sexpinion, which we'll be launching next month. So look forward to that, and hopefully we'll be able to get more teens talking about sex in a healthy manner and in a private manner where they might not be comfortable tweeting their sex questions or posting things on Facebook, or even going to a page that is about sex education on Facebook. Okay, another question?
Hello. I have a question about consent and healthy relationships. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because, you know, like seeing condoms, you know, very visible on TV, that's great. I was wondering, just like, is that putting the horse before the cart? You know, like before sex, like what happened to the back and forth about what is consensual, where are my boundaries? And I was wondering if you could maybe talk about or share some examples of some characters on TV or some books that are doing a really good job of being a good example for young people?
On the Carrie Diaries right now, we have a young Carrie Bradshaw. It's Young Sex in the City. She's 16, and she's very vocal this season about the fact that she's a virgin. So we are dealing with a lot of stories about her boundaries right now with her boyfriend. So that's something we've had a really fun experience playing with taking the very familiar character of Carrie Bradshaw and having her in very varied sexual experiences and getting to see her not do that. So that's what we're trying to do.
Any other thoughts?
Well, because it's, what is it, Sexual Harassment Prevention Month? Is that right? Something along those lines. I've seen a lot of librarians post lists of narrative fiction that has really great treatment of subjects around sexual assault, sexual harassment. I'll tweet some of them with the YTHLive hashtag after the panel. Some that come to mind: Rape Girl, Fault Line, Speak. Obviously, they're doing a lot of work. Lori Halsey Anderson, who wrote Speak, is doing a lot of work right now. But there's a ton of stuff in young adult fiction, and I'm interested in just how you can have a more nuanced discussion about it in a longer narrative form. I'm sure there's also some great films, documentaries, some of the reality TV.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I would just add on healthy relationships, because we, again, try to show like a wide variety of characters in our programming, and one of our goals is always to kind of have the positive characters, the positive relationships. We show people who are struggling more with things, and then kind of have like, the ones that are more obviously the role models without being what our writers always tell us, which is interesting. And it is something that's really a big struggle in terms of, I specialize in creating entertainment education. So we go in with this view in mind of that we want to do it, but how do you keep the entertainment value really high and your viewers engaged? Because you need viewers to share a story and a message. And the writers would be like, "Oh my God, the positive character's so boring to write," because it's really hard to write an amazing positive story and to keep people entertained. People are drawn naturally to drama, so it's something that I think can be done, should be done, and I know we're continuing to do it through each of the programs that we do, and it is challenging. And I can tell you, in terms of like also working with the network side of things, that they need to sell to advertisers, they need viewers, and sometimes people are lazy and they just know that drama sells and they don't care if it's positive or not. And I think that that's a problem and a reality, and it's a challenge that money, time, investment can only overcome, and the people who are ultimately saying, hey, let's make this show come to life, and they have to be saying, to really wanting and pushing it, as well as the people working on it.
Okay, any other questions?
So I was lucky enough to come out really early, like in 14. But one of the things as I grew up, one of the concerns I had was the idea of getting older. And being a young person, what I was going to become when I became an older gay guy, and what that looked like. And most of it was negative. And I'm wondering, that's a topic that I don't really see on TV, kind of like the idea of what it is to age, and age into a person, a queer person of color, or just a queer person, and it being a positive thing, not something to be concerned about, because I think as an older person, there's still this need to feel young, or only young being positive. But I'm not seeing that necessarily portrayed on the media or on TV or on shows. I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I think aging as a whole is a whole separate issue there that isn't covered enough. So I think that's like well far in the future from where we are today, and where we'll be a long time from now, unfortunately, I think, is that we're not going to have an aging queer man on a primetime TV show for a long time, I think, unfortunately. Some great shows that I've seen on aging, though, is Andrew Janks, who's a documentary about, I think it's Room 335, I believe. I can tweet it with the hashtag, though, too. Did a really great documentary about nursing homes and how aging is, but I think that those are two very big issues. Let me rephrase that. Andrew Jenks did a great documentary revolving around the aging cycle and culminated in aging throughout a nursing home. Sure, we'll go with that for now. But I think that those are two huge, massive issues that neither of them have been covered anywhere near the amount that they should be right now. And so unfortunately, I don't think that we're going to see anyone who takes both those issues together for a while.
I think part of the issue, too, is naturally as a writer, you write your experiences. And I know currently on television we're having a problem that writers over 40 are not getting hired on television shows. It's a huge problem that the Writers Guild has taken upon itself to actively push writers over 40 to get jobs. In fact, 3 of the major Hollywood agencies were sued in a class action suit, and they were actually found that they were not promoting their clients over 40 to get jobs. So I think that it kind of starts there. You know, I'm constantly telling my husband, I'm like, I've got like 10 years left in this business. You know, so I mean, it's definitely a concern from the writing standpoint. So you constantly want to be perceived as younger than you are. So you're definitely not going to go pitch a show about aging because you're going to be afraid you're not going to get a job. So it's sort of that, it so kind of starts from the ground up, I feel like.
Well, I would also have to say that we've seen an explosion of reality TV, and reality TV also really focuses on young people. If you look on American Idol, if you look on Big Brother, you're going to see everyone is under 30. So unfortunately, older people are not representative, and definitely not older LGBTQ, unfortunately, unless we write more shows that are less physically competitive for the older generation. So hopefully someone will start writing more reality TV that's not geared to every teenager
It's
out
strange
there.
that most of the TV shows that we watch are catered towards younger people, but overall our population's getting older with people getting older, retiring, but also not as many young people are being born at all. So there should be a shift towards that demographic since there's so many of you. Not to be mean or anything, I'm just saying it's fact. There are many older people.
Now we're pressing the real hot topics, right?
I mean, I think it all boils down to advertising, honestly. I mean, I think that a lot of the networks and studios feel that their ad dollars are best served targeting teens, and until that changes, it's just not going to change. I mean, it comes down to the bottom line for them, I feel like, and that's why I think everything is directed toward teen, mostly on television.
Well, this is YTHLive and a conference on youth, so let's get back to that topic. Does anyone else have a question?
Yep. I'm not sure if it's on that topic or not, but hopefully we can make it on that topic. So my question is for those of you who are creating media, particularly those of you who are creating media for kind of other people who are paying. You've talked a lot about the issues with, say, producers or publishers saying, no one will read that, no one will like that. And so I'm wondering if you have suggestions of things that we can do as consumers of media to be able to help you refute some of that. To be able to say, yes, in fact, if you produce it, we will read it, we will watch it.
You can buy it. I mean, this is a very basic answer, but people often ask me that because I also run a site called Diversity in YA. It's on Tumblr, and it basically, you know, shines the spotlight on young adult fiction with diverse main characters. And people are always saying, you know, no one buys books with black boys on the cover, and that's why you never see any black boys on the cover. And the thing is, if you want more of that, when you see it, you have to put your wallet behind it. Otherwise, that really speaks the loudest to mainstream commercial publishing.
Yeah, and I would have to say now with all the crowdfunding sites, we have Kickstarter, we have Indiegogo. If you want something made, if you want to see your voice represented in media, you can do this. You can just contribute $3, $10. You can help get these books and films and TV shows made. And really, even if you can contribute, you have the power of social media. You can retweet links to these things. You can post it. You can get the conversation started. You can spread the fever and get basically all these causes and all these voices and everything that we want to represent in the media we don't have to wait around. We can fund it today, and we can make these things happen.
I think also the more you buy diverse media, the more you're giving power to those creators, and then they can do more and more. So we were talking at a party the other day about David Levithan, you know, but he's had incredible success, and now he can put two boys kissing on the cover. You know, and they're two white boys kissing on the cover, but they're two boys kissing on the cover of a mainstream book. And we put that power in David Levithan's hands by buying his books. And so I do think you vote with your dollar. On the Indiegogo Kickstarter front, we had a board member here at YTH who wanted to write a gender fluid book about how to make a baby. And he did a Kickstarter, raised a bunch of money, and then a publisher went in and bought that book. You know, so they're paying attention if we can put the dollars behind it.
Exactly. We have time for one more question. Hi there.
Hi. I think it's great that we're talking about more diverse populations in media and in TV shows, but the question is also about genderqueer individuals. You know, and we know that Wade, Unique from Glee is portrayed as one. In mass media, Isis from American Idol. I was wondering how you feel that these characters are portrayed in media and in these shows, and if there should be more of these kind of characters portrayed in these shows as well.
Are you talking specifically about transgender characters? I have to say I'm not an expert on this, so maybe someone else can help me out a little bit. I do think that we absolutely need more representation of transgender characters on TV, and also just genderqueer characters, you know, people who are outside the, you know, masculine, feminine binary. I think that is very hard to do on mainstream television. I mean, even if you watch reality TV like, this was a couple of years ago, but like Dancing with the Stars, you know, when they have, or not Dancing with the Stars, the other one, what is it? So You Think You Can Dance? Like when they have, you know, they always have, you know, male, female couples in very gender normative roles performing. And it's very, very hard for a lot of television producers to break out of that. I wish that it was easier for them, but I think that there should be more, absolutely. I don't know.
Again, the power of social media. If there's someone that you think should be on reality TV, if there's someone that you support, you know, try to use social media to get them on these TV shows, to tell producers that we want to see these this group on TV, that they need to be represented. Vote for them if they end up being on reality TV shows. Just show your support. So that closes the plenary. Thank you so much, speakers. This was an amazing discussion. You brought so much to each topic. Thank you everyone that asked a question, and thank you all for coming to Youth Live. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Hello. Good evening. I'd like to be the second person here tonight to welcome you to YTHLive. You know, having just heard the plenary speakers, it's really clear that the context for our work in youth health is hugely important. I was having some very bizarre flashbacks during that session about the Partridge Family and the Brady Bunch that I'm not going to get into. But I do want to provide just some brief, some context, actually, for my very brief opening remarks tonight. First, my name is David Goldsmith, and I'm one of 7 people who serve on the ISIS, or I should say the YTH board, with Deb and several members of her team. And I've spent the last 25 years working at the intersection of technology and social change, most recently with a company that builds social networks that are focused on patients with chronic and complex health conditions. This is actually my 3rd year attending this conference, and I attend a lot of conferences over the course of the year that relate to all aspects of health and technology, and I can tell you this is really among my favorites. It's an outstanding conference. If you're new to this, I'm sure you're going to discover much the same. So that's a little bit of context for my role here today, but I do want to offer a little bit more. You know, 35 years ago, long before most of you were born, I was youth advocate for Planned Parenthood. Not just any Planned Parenthood, Planned Parenthood of Utah. As most of you know, Utah is a state known as deeply pro-Republican, pro-family, pro-religion, and pro-life. And as it turns out, deeply promiscuous. In 1979, the year I graduated high school, Utah had one of the highest per capita rates of teen pregnancy in the U.S. But there's some additional context I want to touch upon. In 1979, Jimmy Carter was president. His administration was quite progressive when it came to support for family planning. They significantly increased Title X grants to organizations like Planned Parenthood. In Utah, some of those funds went towards Planned Parenthood's Youth Advocates Program, which was then just a pilot program and one of the first of its kind in the nation. I applied to join, and I was honored to be accepted. I was also quite pleased to discover that the program consisted of me and 10 other girls, which enabled me to learn a lot very, very quickly. So back to context. Bear in mind that in 1979, Al Gore, who was then a young congressman from Tennessee, had not yet invented the internet. Which means that as dreadful as this may sound, you know, there was no Facebook, there was no Tumblr, there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, and of course there was no Google. And as if that wasn't bad enough, we didn't yet have personal computers. This little gem didn't make it to the market until 2 years after I graduated high school. But here's what we did have. We had a serious and growing problem with teen pregnancy, or perhaps more specifically, teen pregnancy prevention. In Utah, in particular, we really sucked at it. About 8 in 10 teen pregnancies at the time were considered unintentional, which leads me back to context. Because in Utah, in 1979, there was a widely held belief, one deeply woven into the religious and cultural fabric of our state, that our teen pregnancy problem actually had a very logical explanation. Teens were too promiscuous. You know, the conventional wisdom at that time was quite simple. Teens were promiscuous because organizations like Planned Parenthood routinely and unapologetically promoted promiscuity. That's right, we encouraged teens to have sex. Now, you might ask how exactly we did that. because we talked about it. The prevailing view at that time was that if we talked about it, teens would do it, whether the it was drugs or booze or each other. So, as it turns out, there were lots of people in Utah in 1979 who didn't want us talking about it, not even a little bit. Which is why one day I got called to the vice principal's office, where I was greeted not just by the vice principal, but by the school police officer and by the school guidance counselor. And they were there in full force to inform me that the school board had received a complaint from a concerned community member that I had been passing out pornographic literature on behalf of Planned Parenthood. I was told in no uncertain terms that that was a violation of Utah law. It didn't really matter that I hadn't been passing out anything to my fellow students, let alone pornographic literature. What mattered was that I was the source of the state's growing teen pregnancy problem. So that was the context for my work as a youth advocate in 1979. Fast forward to today, and the context for our work in this field is radically different. Attitudes towards sex education have evolved in many states. Rates of teen pregnancy are at historical lows, and the tools at our disposal are not just extraordinarily powerful, but practically ubiquitous. In 2013, all of us here today are approaching our work in this field in remarkable new ways, and it's working. This kind of change, meaningful, measurable change, is the context for this conference. It's also the context for the change in the name of this conference. In previous years, this was, as most of you know, Sex Tech. It seemed really to the point, and it got a lot of attention. But something really integral to the conference was missing from the name, and that was health. Today in 2013, all of you working in this field are working on issues fundamentally related not only to sexual health of youth and young adults, but to their emotional, physical, and spiritual health as well. And the context of your work is a technologically driven, hyper-connected demographic for whom 24/7 connectivity is a given. So it seems only fitting that sex tech evolved into youth tech health, or YTHLive, or YTHLive. It's a very good description of our focus here over the next 2 days, and it will no doubt be the context for many great conversations, presentations, and debates. This is your conference, this is our context, and I'd like to welcome you. And I'd also like to welcome, as our keynote speaker, Deb Levine, Executive Director of YTH.
Hi. I'm so glad to be here. The room is full. Welcome to San Francisco, and thank you so much for coming. You've probably noticed that we're struggling a little bit with our new name. We just launched it 2 days ago, and you pronounce it YTH. It stands for Youth plus Tech plus Health. The look is new, but our commitment to educating and advocating for young people is stronger than ever. For the past 12 years, you've known us by any number of names. You knew us as InSpot, you knew us as SexInfo, you knew us as STDtest.org, and as ISIS, and as Internet Sexuality Information Services. You knew us by our collaborations with your local Department of Health, the NIMH, and the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. Last year, we were known in the media by TechSex USA, the research we conducted with the Ford Foundation on how youth, particularly young people of color, use technology for their sexual and reproductive health. Research that's still frequently quoted and referenced in the work that each of us does every day. Many of you in the audience today only know us from this conference, where we come together to hold the conversations that set the agenda for the next year. For the past 12 years, we've worked steadfastly to advance the roles of technology in the fields of sexual and reproductive health, STD and HIV prevention, and healthy relationships for youth and young adults. We've done this by piloting new programs, discovering what works, and disseminating those learnings to practitioners, researchers, and funders. Now that we've become to more closely resemble a collaborative think tank, a hotbed of best practices and technological innovations, I'm so proud to bring us all together under the banner of our new name, which stands for Youth Plus Tech Plus Health, YTH. You'll hear me keep saying it. I'm going to imprint it in my brain and imprint it in yours. You'll see that pronounce it, YTH, in every room throughout the conference. We really do believe that young people deserve real information when they need it and how they want it. And all youth and young adults are not the same. Young people of color, particularly low-income youth of color, suffer disproportionately from the negative consequences of sex and relationships. You might notice that we're parsing, if anyone's seen our new website, we're parsing our new brand into new, now, and next. We pilot new technologies, we discover what works right now, and next, we evangelize our learnings. And you, every one of you in this room, are the keys to our success. I want to tell you about a few projects that we're working on right now, figuring out what works, and how to integrate the digital world with the daily lives of the young people we work with and their primary issues of concern around sexual and reproductive health and rights. So one project, it doesn't have the best name, but we call it the Spark Health Pilot. We worked very closely with the Spark San Francisco team to talk to young professionals, sometimes called millennials, about reproductive health and justice. We wanted to understand what would make them donate to women and girls' issues in the same way that they give to environmental issues and other social movements. Once we got the gist of their motivations, pretty simple. They wanted to be included in the conversations. They didn't want to be told what to do and where to give their money. We went out and we put an ad on Craigslist for women in Oakland to come to the YTH office and tell their stories about contraception and birth control. We made 4 videos, and you can see them on Vimeo because YouTube took them down. You can talk to me about that later. After we had 120,000 page views, and combined with in-person relationship cultivation, raised over $100,000 from women and girls' issues. I encourage you can hear more about it from Sheena Jane, who's filling in for Shannon Farley of Spark on the panel on Monday at 4:15, Millennials and Social Justice. Another really fabulous project that we're in the midst of right now is called Today's for Tomorrow. It's a Tumblr page combined with the website, combined with a text messaging program, and ultimately combined with an in-person high school sex education class. It's got a really bright look. It's combined with pop culture and new media, Selena Gomez, and a positive, inspirational vibe. The messaging is really set to reach young people in California with messages of healthy living, which includes unplanned pregnancy prevention, job-seeking tips, mental health, and healthy sexuality. Inspired by a groundbreaking and inclusive new classroom curriculum in San Francisco Unified, Today's for Tomorrow will follow along with the modules of the classroom curriculum to complement students' classroom learning. And you can hear more about that project from Christopher Pepper from San Francisco Unified and Jessica Ken from YTH. And that's Tuesday morning at 8:30. So now we're on Now, okay? We have a project in the very beginning stages right now called TIPS. It's a partnership between YTH, the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, and Blue Shield of California Foundation. And we just finished the formative research phase of this. And we're basically trying to provide women in Fresno County, which is a migrant worker farming town in farming county. Excuse me, it's not a town; it's a whole county in the Central Valley of California, and we're trying to increase their access to free and low-cost health care, immigration, and domestic violence services. And our preliminary results are really exciting. I know that everybody in this room knows this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The community of women that we've been speaking to has not been responding when they are being targeted as domestic violence victims. And this, despite the fact that the rates of domestic violence in Fresno County are close to 60%. So more than half of women are victims and survivors of domestic violence. But if we went out and did a campaign to say, hey, all you domestic violence victims, come and talk to us. We're going to help you. They're not interested. They said to us, loud and clear, domestic violence is not an identity, and it's not our identity. And we found that programs that treat people with respect, that solve their needs for transportation and child care, for immigration and legal services, and that gain their trust are the programs that they respond to. TIPS is an intergenerational project. We surveyed hundreds of women, and while we assumed that younger women would have smartphones and the older women would not have smartphones, we discovered quite the opposite. Older women in this community all had smartphones. And when I say older, I'm saying 35 to 80. It was remarkable. Hundreds and hundreds of women, what they said to us was, that's the only thing they have. They have a smartphone. They do everything on that. So basically, it's their voice line, it's their text messaging service, it's how they get to the web, it's where they watch TV, it's where they download video, it's where they listen to the radio, it's where they purchase things. They don't have credit cards. It's all done on the phone, the smartphone, QR codes, and they pay one bill per month. The younger women, and the younger Latina migrant women in Fresno County did not have smartphones because they couldn't afford the data plan at $60 a month. So just totally tipped what we were thinking about. The outcome of the service is going to be a text messaging service and a mobile-optimized website that connects Latina immigrant women with the culturally competent services that they are looking for. And what's been really exciting is understanding the opportunities that our mobile phones provide. I can tell you about one more Now project, which is Oregon Reminders. This is an mHealth program, okay? mHealth being mobile health. A simple, HIPAA-compliant, mobile-optimized service that provides a private, secure way for people to set their own health reminders. You set reminders and receive your tips via text, email, and voice. It's free, thanks to the Oregon Health Authority. And people can even write what they like in their reminder messages, such as time to take the dog for a walk, whatever it takes to motivate you to stay on track with HIV testing, medications, and healthy living. This project's only been up for a few months, and a full evaluation will happen a little later this year when we have some more subscribers. But I just wanted to show you a quick sample of users. 70 people have actually signed up for medication reminders for 90 different medications, which means that about a third are on two different medication schedules. And the vast majority of people are using text messages for their reminders with email and IVR, which is the digital voice, as a backup. If you want to hear more about Oregon Reminders, Dano Beck is here from the Oregon Health Authority, and he's going to be talking about Oregon Reminders, Monday morning at 8:30. And I'm sorry, Dano. I'm not going to curse. Dano. Okay. We just met right before this. Okay. So now I want to talk about what's next. And we are collaborating to provide free and low-cost health information and services where the lack disproportionately impacts low-income and minority youth. And what we're doing to utilize new and rapidly evolving technologies to engage youth to advocate for themselves. We have several projects on the horizon. Right now, we're starting a digital storytelling project to harness the wellness narratives of Latina youth to influence policy discussions and public discourse. We're working in Denver, Colorado, with the University of Colorado, the Florence Crittenden Center, which operates a high school for pregnant and parenting teens, and the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health. Students at the school will use their own stories to initiate dialogue on the critical importance of access to and funding for contraception and abortion, access to affordable and quality pre- and postnatal health care, and improved educational opportunities for Latina, first-generation, and undocumented students. In a totally different next project, this one's on the horizon. It's still pretty much under wraps, but I want to talk about a few parts of it that are very exciting for us. We're working on a mobile gaming app for adolescents who are HIV positive. It's very disruptive. It is not a game for health. In the interviews we did with HIV-positive youth with Nokia, we found that the most likely reason that teens don't take their medication is that they haven't disclosed their HIV status to their friends. The mobile game's really designed to reduce the stigma that's already associated with being young and being HIV positive. I really invite you to join us. It's our belief that young people deserve information, they deserve to be heard, and they deserve sexual health without shame or fear. We're focused on innovation, the emerging, the startling, and sometimes even the simple technologies that work to reach young people where they are. And we're focused on you. For 2013, we've brought together the most amazing minds, that's you, in youth advocacy, technology, and health to showcase what works. These are your peers. These are the individuals and the organizations running the most cutting-edge and effective health programs serving youth and young adults. Meet them. Ask questions. There's probably someone sitting next to you who needs a job. If you have a job, offer them a job. For anyone who hasn't been here before, that's my little mantra. Don't ask me how you should reach youth. Ask the young leader sitting next to you, and then give them a job. Join the conversation. Then, as we see you, the attendees of YTHLive, we see you do this every year. Take back what you've learned here to your communities and do your part to make the world a better place. Okay. That's the thing. So YTH, I'll say it again, Youth, Tech, and Health. Let me tell you, I've got a little bit of business to do. So I say thank you again to San Francisco. The way the rest of today goes is we have a little break. I wholeheartedly encourage you to go check out those demo booths in the halls. The program says that the demo booths will only be here Monday, but they're actually here Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, swapping out a little bit on who's here what days. STD Triage, if you have not met Alexander, he has this mobile app where you can take a picture of your sore, rash, or bumps and send it through your mobile phone to qualified medical providers and get diagnoses and treatment on the fly on your mobile phone. It's totally awesome. I just can't believe it because, for those of you who know, I've been answering that question, what do I do if I have a sore bump or rash? on my genitals for a good 20 years now. So I am just thrilled that somebody you could take a picture on your mobile phone. Anyway, there's quite a few amazing demos. Tomorrow we have Wildflower Health that's coming to showcase a pregnancy app, which is just beautiful and awesome. And we have Be the Generation Bridge, but please visit the folks in the halls. Tonight, after the break, we have one multi-panel session in all 4 rooms. And then from 7:30 to 9:30, I invite you to join us at the Four Seas restaurant. It's in San Francisco's Chinatown. For those of you who haven't been here before, it's iconic. Please come down and join us for food and drink. There is a walk back up the hill. Yes, there is. And it's a steep hill at that. So drink some water. So as you look around the conference for the next couple of days, I'm going to ask, I see Jess. Where's Ada E? Okay, Jess and Ada E, wave your hands. Jess and Ada E are going to be walking around with the video guy, Jamie, in the back with the camera, and they're going to be asking you questions. So, fun questions, nothing personal. And they're just going to be chatting and talking, and please talk to them. Jess and Ada E both work for YTH and have been amazing, and this is their first time going out and interviewing with the camera. So our Twitter hashtag, #YTHLive. There's an app you can download if you have a LinkedIn profile on Bizzabo, I think is how you say it. It's a free app. But then if you can connect with all the people at the conference through the app, but you could also, if you want to figure out what room you want to be in, you can search it. It's really easy and a quick download. At the registration table, there's free DVDs from aidsvideo.org. Please pick one up. We have sign language interpreters for the entire event, so come on and sit over near the podium, whichever podium people are speaking from, and you can then follow them around to workshops if you need. And what else? I have to thank you to our sponsors. So the Ford Foundation, National Institute of Mental Health, Vodafone America's Foundation, Health 2.0, Eventbrite, Be the Generation Bridge, Sonic.net, Rock Health, and Burrell Report. You will see these folks. They either have ads in the program. Many of them have attendees here at the conference. Please talk to them. Tell them thank you for helping us put on a fabulous YTH Live. Thank you again.